Welcome to our presentation, everyone. This is International Service, Opportunities for Worldwide Partnering. In Rotary, clubs have lots of ways to engage in international service. These activities add a wonderful dimension to our experience of being Rotarians. Connecting across borders provides amazing opportunities to partner with other clubs, develop friendships and cross-cultural awareness, and create sustainable change, even without a grant. So we are presenting to you ways to partner with other clubs in international service and how to write a successful or get a grant successfully.
Hey, dragging is not my favorite.
A couple of things for making sure this goes smoothly. One, please.
The speaker's muted.
Carolyn is muted.
Yeah.
Well, I better start over. I don't know how that happened.
You're okay. Just keep going.
But that recorded, so that's what counts. Okay. I joined Rotary at the end of 2013. And the main, really primary reason I did, because I was looking at other organizations to join that offer opportunities for service in the community. And I chose Rotary because of the opportunities that lie ahead in international service. That's what excited me, because I've had an international life and career. And Ramona, you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Ramona Delmas from the Bishop Sunrise Rotary Club. And I was a Rotarian way back in the beginning of time, in 1991 and 92, 93, when I had the opportunity to host an exchange student from Mexico. That was the beginning introduction of international relationships for me. I left Rotary in retirement. I came back because I was looking for another opportunity to get involved in international service. So for me, I'm very dedicated to my local community, but my heart lies in international service.
Okay. So you can see we have a bias in Rotary. Okay, now my cursor decided not to go on. Okay, Ramona, this is our test. Here we go. All right, so here are our topics today. We're really looking at how Rotary is expanding in its reach and focus in international service and what different ways to partner. This is really the main focus of this part of the presentation. And what are foundations of successful international projects? I will talk to you very briefly about our district international service committee, which is doing a great job. And Ramona will continue on with keys to success for global grants. Okay, now we're going to show a very short video to get us all in the mindset of international here. Okay. So Rotary International, their presence in the world is growing. We are over 1.2 million Rotarians in about 200 countries. I say about because maybe more than that by now. And we are partnering with large government organizations and NGOs. For example, one of our partners has become the United States Agency for International Development. This is, through our federal government, and it is the largest donor of humanitarian foreign aid in the world. So you may have noticed that there are more and more articles on international service in the Rotary magazine lately. The stories tend to be as much about Rotarians in other countries and international projects led by clubs everywhere as anywhere as in the US. And yet the magazine is published in the US. So why? Perhaps I think it's because we're all connected. What happens in other parts of the world can impact us. Look at this past year with COVID-19, how it's disrupted the world, and the increasing poverty from it can mean, for example, more migration to our borders, or the need for economic and community assistance in developing countries. But also, as Rotarians, we care and we have skills, so we take action, not just at home, but around the world. And another example of this is donation of medical equipment and supplies through MESA, Medical Equipment Supplies Abroad, which is a foundation. Susanville Sunrise Club in our district is participating with a district in Ohio, and they pass on equipment that is then sent abroad, mostly to developing countries. Now, I want to talk about the value of international service for us as individuals and our clubs. So first of all, participation is a way to grow as global citizens. And what I mean by that is to develop a broader perspective, to see the world beyond our backyard or what's familiar to us, to understand the perspectives of people from cultures different from our own and how they think and live. Another value is the opportunity to partner with other clubs and learn about their ways of operating, their cultures, collaborate with people different from us, make friends, and spread goodwill. And this all helps to create lasting change by reducing poverty, such as in these areas I have on the slide. And just, how could I say, before I go to the next bullet, I want you to realize, you look at these 3 bullets, most of these benefits cannot be experienced from projects we carry out at home. It's not about less than or more than. These are just opportunities, aspects of what makes me personally, knowing that I can make these kinds of contributions makes me excited to be a Rotarian and enriches my life. And I know that it also helps expand our reputation as a first-rate global charitable organization. So our intention, Ramona's and mine, for you is that you find ways to engage in international service with your fellow club members and other Rotarians. Okay, so let's get down to partnering. One good way is in our hemisphere is project fairs, which are held mostly in Latin America and then further away in Africa. And there's a lot of information on them on the website, the RI website. And I'll go into a little detail in the next slide. Partnering with other clubs also means that you can join a club that has global grants or get one, initiate one. You see them periodically in our district newsletter. And of course, Ramona is the expert on this. Another example of partnering is to host a RI student with nearby clubs in your area and to support a Rotary Scholar, whether at the district level or the global level. Okay, so project fairs. These, just, I don't know if people are familiar with these. I found in my club, almost nobody was familiar. Project fairs are regional events hosted by Rotary districts to encourage international friendship and collaboration. And the host clubs have the opportunity to showcase their service projects to potential global partners, which means usually Rotary Club members coming from the US and Canada, and gives us as visitors a means to find a project that meets our club's goals. Partners can also help fund the projects. So usually these projects they showcase, they are in need of both collaboration in the work and setting it up and in the funding. Another way to partner is with charitable and government organizations. The first item here, shelter box, you have to get qualified in this to be able to do it, and it's as an individual, not as a club. Habitat for Humanity, I'll go into more details on the next slide, but we all know who they are, but we don't know all the extent of the work they do with what philosophy. Another NGO is Days for Girls International. They make available menstrual kits and sex education for girls and young women to help them, first of all, go to school so that they don't have a problem with hygiene. And then that means that they are eligible for jobs of some type when they finish school. And they also tend not to marry so young and make better choices in their marriage. So it's a very empowering program for young girls. The Open World program, I will go into a little bit of detail on this. This is one of my favorite programs ever in Rotary. And then if you want to see more about Rotary partners, you can come back to this slide if you want to review the recording, because the web pages are pretty hard to navigate, I find, but this one has a lot on partnerships. Okay, so Habitat for Humanity. The last bullet really sums it up. What they're really about is supporting sustainable, transformative development of communities, and not just housing alone. Okay, so that's one reason why they are a Rotary partner, RI partner. And the Open World Leadership Program promotes U.S. diplomatic ties, trade, political, security, and cultural interests for delegations of young professionals coming from former Soviet satellite countries. The country that our delegation came from in our Nevada City Club was from Kazakhstan. So this gives them an opportunity to learn directly about American practices in one of these themes. So it's either like what we chose was entrepreneurship, but they also have these others here that you see on the slide. And it's all paid for, it's sponsored by US Congress, and therefore it's all paid for by the US Congress. So our club just loved this program. It's very intense. It's for a week. You have host families. And this cultural exchange is like bringing another part of the world to your community for mutual learning without the expense of travel. And it really had a multiplier effect in our case. Of course, it impacts the delegates. They learn so much, but they also see how we live at home. The community came to our social events and they learned a lot about it. And it was just an outstanding program. And if anyone is interested, I'd be happy to talk to you about who to contact in RI in Evanston, who's in charge of the program. Okay. In fact, here's her name. So good, I forgot I put it in here. Okay. And this was our delegates. We took them to San Francisco, ready to show them the sights, right? It's a famous city. Everybody knows San Francisco. The only thing they wanted to do was get to the Pacific Ocean. Why? They're a landlocked country. They couldn't wait. You should have seen it. It was like 10-year-olds running into the waves. It was a riot. So it was a lot of fun. Okay, a third way to partner is to join existing projects in our district, or for that matter, any other district. So these are examples of current projects that are going on in our district. I can speak specifically to the last one here. We do this every year, and I have a couple slides on this coming up. But it's a very good way to partner with the club down in Baja, southern end of Baja, to make a difference, especially for children. Okay, so what's in the power of partnering? It's the foundation of successful projects. It really is. If you partner just on the technical level, you may not develop the relationships and the communication that are necessary to make your project successful. And these are two ways here that I've selected that really help. One is to form club-to-club relationship called twin clubs, like sister clubs. And the other is an individual program of exchange called friendship exchange, which I'll illustrate. So first of all, then, this diagnostic health testing that we do every spring in Los Barriles with the Rotary Club there, we go into the schools. And one of the reasons is that if the children don't get tested through the local health clinic, their parents don't bring them there, we go to them. And this way they can monitor students, for example, their glucose levels to see if they are too high, because diabetes is rampant there, because the water table is terrible from previous mining in the area. And so their water is not good. Everybody drinks sodas, for example, and a lot of water, clean water. So it's a problem, and they need to detect it early. Okay, twin clubs. My club formed twin club relationship with the Astana, Kazakhstan club after our experience of the open world program. And 3 of the people standing here were in the delegation from Kazakhstan. And this was my friendship exchange where I stayed with the president of the Astana Club. This was 4 years ago. Definitely had new cultural experiences. On the upper right, we're in a yurt, a real yurt. It's not plastic, it's not Hollywood type thing. It was amazing. And in turn, we reciprocated, oh, sorry for the spelling. We reciprocated our friendship exchange with Liazat, is her name, the president, who came and joined us. And it happened to be the week of 4th of July. So she got to partake of all the celebration. Okay, the last thing then I wanted to mention is our district international service committee, which I formed about 1.5 years ago. And we together have written up a lot of articles on examples of international service of all different kinds, and the fairly recent. And so these are, we're calling them stories. They're on our website, and they, which is here. So if you go onto the website and you go through avenues of service and then select international service, this is the page you'll see. And now these stories on the left under the column International Service Project Stories show you what a lot of our clubs have been up to. So this whole part of the website is totally transformed. It was outdated by 3 years, and we've got it with much more direct information that's updated and directly impacting our club. And lately we've published stories of international service in the district newsletter. So take a look in the April one, the May issue that just came out, and pretty soon the June issue will have them. Okay. So that's it. Again, if you have questions, please wait till Ramona has finished, and we'll be glad to help you. And go ahead and put them in the chat as we go. Thanks. Okay.
Thank you, Carolyn, for that. Can you stop sharing your screen?
Yeah, I'm trying to get my cursor slow for some reason. Here we go.
There you go. We're back, everyone. Just give me a second here
Okay.
and I'm gonna hop in here. Jump in here and get mine. There we go. The wonderful world of global grants. The world of a lot of hard work, but a world that brings a lot of meaning to the people that we provide these global grants for and the lives that we can change. But I have to say, oftentimes, the life that is most changed in these global grants is you, the Rotarian, who's providing those services. It is a great way to bring kind and loving services around the world. Global grants are very large international projects that are sustainable and they have measurable outcomes in the Rotary's areas of focus. So you can only do a global grant if you write a budget for more than $30,000. This is not like our district grants. These are large grants. And Rotary Foundation is now moving into the multi-million-dollar grants to help bring about changes. There's always an international club and a host club. So we here in District 5190 would be at the international club. The country we're working in and the Rotary Club we're working with is the host club. All of our global grants fund humanitarian projects, scholarships for graduate level academic studies, and vocational training teams. My experience in global grants is in the areas of focus of disease and prevention, maternal health. Those grants have had vocational training teams attached to them, as well as a global scholarship. So today I'll reference some of the photos and just kind of bring in some of my personal experience from that, from what I've had there. So really, to bring a project to success, you kind of have to understand what is that global project. And first and foremost, it's a building a relationship between your club and your host club, opening up those communications, starting to talk and build friendship and a work ethic between the two clubs. I really want you to think about 4 things that are really important in the very beginning of these projects. Is that you're going to oftentimes be working in a culture that you may or may not be familiar with. And that culture starts at the country level, down to the state level, down to the local pueblo, and even into the individual families' lives. So there's a lot of cultural awareness that has to go into this project before you start developing it any further. And you're also going to be working with a language you may not understand and may not be familiar with as well. So who's going to be your interpreters? Who are going to be your translators for this project? There are lots of political systems. It's kind of like the culture. Political systems at the country level that can play a part of your project, right down to the local little community where the project's going to be happening. So you want your host Rotary Club to have a pretty good understanding of what those political systems are before you step into anything there that does, before it can become a landmine for you. There is another thing you need to think about, because you're going to be developing a budget based on 2 currencies, the US dollar and the currency of the country you're working in. And so remember, you have an exchange rate that you're working with. There's ways that you set that exchange rate at the beginning of your project, but in the end, you may need more money to add money, or you may have some money left over that needs to be spent. And I don't think we oftentimes stop to realize the time zone difference when we're working. There's a big difference between living in Reno, Nevada, and the time zone to Central America than to Southeast Asia or Africa. So are you wanting to work where you're up at 1 in the morning meeting with your host club, developing your project? Are you wanting to put the expenses into traveling that far? So those are just other things that need to think about so that you can begin to bring this project together and make it successful. Every global grant project has to have Rotarian involvement. And this is both at the international club, your club, and the host club in the country you're working with. But you want to start out in the very beginning, checking to see, is your club in good standing with District 5190 and Rotary International? Are your dues paid? Are your taxes filed? That type of thing. Same thing with their club, excuse me. Same thing with their club. Are they in good standing with their district? And is their district and club in good standing with Rotary International? You know, are the club members really committed to this project? And do they have skills and connections within those communities? So not only do you need skill sets on the host side, you need skill sets on our side as well. And here's another thing is, are we capable of raising the money for these projects? Because we forget that that's often a very large part of the development of this grant. We can develop the grant, we can build a budget, but then do we have the ability to raise the funds for those projects? You know, not every project has to be all Rotarians. It's very, very beneficial to bring non-Rotarians into these global grant projects, because oftentimes they have the expertise of the area of focus that we're working in. They can become the team leaders for your projects, and they can also bring along their own financial donors to these projects with you as well in their partnership. And this picture you see here, this is a large maternal health, disease prevention, surgical team. I would say that there's only about 25% of us are Rotarians. The rest of these are doctors, nurses, physicians, assistants, team that built up a team that was able to come in and do the project that we had identified. Their donors that gave to their organization shifted their money and put it into the Rotary Global Grant Project as part of our funding. So it was very powerful to have these non-Rotarians as a part of our team. So in Rotary, we have these 7 areas of focus. I think most of you are familiar with these. They're the peace and conflict and prevention, disease prevention, water and sanitation, maternal health, basic education, literacy, economic and community development. And what everybody seems to be really excited about around this country and around the world is our 7th area of focus that begins on July 1st this year, and it's supporting the environment. Oftentimes, your global grant might have more than one of these areas of focus attached to it. Just know that when you do that, each area of focus that is identified in this global grant has to follow the policy statements that are attached to that area that you've chosen. So say you choose maternal and child health. You go on to the Rotary International website, you look at the area of focus policy statements, because right there is what they're telling you they're looking for and what they're going to need to see in the application that you're going to submit. If you haven't answered those questions up front, you're going to get a long letter back from them outlining the areas that you still need to identify. So we are now required to do a community needs assessment. I think it is the most valuable part of your whole entire project, because by doing this needs assessment, and by the way, the host country club can do the needs assessment, but you too, as Rotarians and your club, should want to go down and be a part of that needs assessment so that you begin to develop that relationship and the building of sustainability into your project. So it gives you an understanding of the dynamics that are working in that community. It's getting your members to participate more closely. But I think what it's really doing is it's building some trust and community ownership and building the sustainability that you're going to look for in the end of your project. And by the way, District 5190 grants can now be used to fund your team to go down to do a community needs assessment wherever that is that you choose to do that. It can also be used to fund a group to go to a project fair to where you could potentially meet partners for a global grant project. So there's tools that they recommend that you use by the Rotary International. You can use, that doesn't mean that you have to use all of these, but each one of these brings about just that much more information that you're trying to gather. So it's going to help you identify who the people are in the community, what that physical environment looks like. And the other thing it's going to help you look for is, are there other non-government organizations in this community already working? Because if they are, you really want to sit down and talk to them, because what we do not want to do is we do not want to build and duplicate their services. We want to find the gaps of their services, the gaps that are in this community, so that we can partner with them and the local community to build a strong, sustainable program for the people of that community. Community mapping is like a community I worked in, has a hub of about 30,000 people in it. And it's where the main hospital lies, but we have 10 outlying communities. So it was very important for us to understand where those 10 communities were in relationship to this community and what their needs were going to be outside of the main facility. So in this side, you can see here that in the bottom right, we are working very closely with all of the health officials in this region and in the state of Chiapas, Mexico. We spend 2 to 3 days sitting down, we travel together, we go look at the hospital, we come back and we begin to map out what these health officials see as the need in this community. But we took the time to go to one of the remote villages and we sat down with a group of women who are maternal health educators, but also women themselves in need of obstetrical and emergency care. I have to tell you, this group of women identified and sent us in a direction we never dreamed we would be going. It was one of our obstetrical doctors that was on this trip, a gynecologist, who asked a very simple question of the women of a potential need that she suspected they had. You watch the physical reaction take place amongst these women, and then they start shaking their heads. Yes, yes, we have that need. So we started talking to them about this need, started kind of identifying how dramatic the need was. So when we went back and sat down the final day with the health officials, we talked to them about this need. They had no idea that these women were having these kind of gynecological problems. These women had never identified this. And so it sent our project in a new direction. So that was the power of taking the time to go and actually talk to the beneficiaries themselves of a need. This is going to change the projection of the healthcare of many women in Mexico now, because we've identified that this is a need amongst many women. And we're working with the government to bring about a solution for this problem. So just remember, you're that outsider, you're looking in, but keep an open mind of what you're seeing and what you're hearing in that needs assessment time. And I think the biggest message is, don't promise that you're coming back, and don't promise a project, because you're there, they're excited you're there, they're happy that you're asking questions, and now they're like, are you coming back? What are you going to do? Are you coming back? Are you going to bring the money? Are we going to see something new happen in our community? You can't make that promise, because you haven't gone home, you haven't sat down, you haven't evaluated, you haven't developed your project, and you haven't built your budget at the same time. So make no promises while you're there doing a community needs assessment. You are going to select your project, and each project in a global grant has a primary contact. So one from the International Club, one from the host club. In District 5190, we are now requiring that our primary contact have current grant management training. The rules and regulations for global grants is changing on a fairly annual basis. We're seeing changes, so that's why we're requiring this. You're going to begin to build your budget on the project you've identified. You're going to secure that funding, and then you're going to develop your memorandums of understandings with your community, with your state officials potentially, and definitely with your host club. So you always have to make sure that your project is possible. Just because you've come up with this needs assessment and you can see where you can go with this project. Well, is it even possible for your two clubs to put this project together? And does it align with one of our areas of focus? Who are the qualified partners that can do this project? And remember, we're not out there to duplicate services. We're out there to find the gaps, to supplement and build sustainable and measurable projects when we do global grants. You've heard me mention over and over sustainability, sustainability. One of the last things you want to do is go into a community, bring all of these wonderful projects and resources to them and walk away, and the project fall flat on its face because there's no sustainability built into it. So again, you're going to start with that community. You're going to look at the resources that are there. You're going to look at the gaps that are in services. You want to gain as much local ownership in this project as you possibly can. For instance, one project I've worked on, the Rotary Club is 4 hours away from this community. So we really have to have the dedication of those community members to keep moving this project forward for us. And one of the ways to do that is to give them the training that they need to keep moving your project forward. And if this training is medical training, you bring in the doctors to do the training. If it's bringing in computers, it's teaching them how to maintain those computers, how to teach the computer courses. Another very important part is to buy as many local products as you can. And that might not mean just right there in that little community. It could be, you might have to buy it somewhere in the country. But the goal is to help their economies while we're there, but also to know that they can have warranties if they need them, that if they need repair work, it's available to them right there. It's not something we purchased here and sent to them. And if you can find that local funding through other organizations to partner with, that's even better for that. And then remember, we're always measuring our success. But I also want to encourage you, we're going to measure our failures as well, because not every project is 100% successful. And it's important for us to identify where are those little areas that went wrong in this grant. So when you begin to develop your monitoring evaluation plan, I encourage you to start with the end in mind. What was this project supposed to look like when we walk away? When Rotary is no longer in this community, providing all these services and resources, what is it going to look like? And then that gives you your baseline data from the very beginning. You're looking forward from the back to the front, and you're looking at what are the measurable baseline data that you have right now, and then you begin to collect that during your project. Remember, we're not measuring our success at the end of our project. We're keeping tabs on it as we move through, because some of these projects last multiple years. And so we're bringing in and checking constantly to see how things are going. There are a lot of resources out there for you when you decide you want to do a global grant. There is the Guide to Global Grants. It answers just about every single question you could ever imagine that you would need to have answered when you're writing that. Each global grant has an advisor from the Rotary Foundation that will be assigned to that grant. I can't emphasize enough the importance of you picking up your phone, calling and introducing yourself to this country contact. They are eager to help you. They can help outline some issues that they might already know about that you don't have any ideas about, but their whole purpose is to make a successful project and a successful grant. We also have cadres around the world that work within these areas of focus. These are people who are very well versed in the area of focus, and they are there specifically to help you develop a project. They are also the ones, if you write a project over $50,000, they will be coming in and evaluating your project and be working with you then as well. We have Rotary Action Groups, and these are people who are made membership from around the world, and they can help you put pieces together. They have local contacts for you. For instance, the identified need in Mexico that those women identified, The product that we need is extremely expensive in the United States. It is unavailable in the country of Mexico. But now through the Rotary Action Group of Maternal Health, I have a gentleman that lives in Switzerland who has now identified the source for us at a good cost in Germany. So you can see how it just kind of all blended and worked together. But you also have our District 5190 Foundation team that Carolyn was talking about earlier. And we're all there to help you with your progress. So just remember, we're out there to make a change in people's lives. We really want to respond to what they see them doing. Our work can transform lives. It truly can. It gives us a chance to become engaged. Like Carolyn and I were saying, it's given both of us a chance to be engaged on the international world. I've met friends and folks that I would have never met if I hadn't been in Rotary. But in the end, we leave behind sustainable products and projects. So for Rotary, together we see a world where people unite and take action to create lasting change across the globe, in our communities, and in ourselves. So now we'd like to open this up for any questions. We have a few minutes here. We have about 6 minutes. So if you have any questions, you can put them into the chat. There we go. Put it into the chat and Carolyn and I can address it from there. Any questions? I see Frederick, how's your project coming along, Frederick? You're muted, Frederick.
Right now, I'm just waiting for travel.
Waiting for travel to open for you.
Um,
Yeah, yes.
I'm looking forward. I'm keeping track of it, but I'm looking at Columbia. In addition to COVID, now they've got rioting in the street. So it's interesting.
It's interesting, yes.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, boy.
Well, and I would like to introduce Kathy. Kathy took one of our, she did not do a large global grant, but she took a district funded grant and used it for an international service project. So she's had her challenges, but I have to say Kathy has met every single challenge that we've asked her to meet. And it ended up in many ways mimicking a global grant, I would say. So Kathy, good work on that.
Yeah, well, thank you very much. And I just want to thank Ramona and Wen for all of the support that they provided, because boy, I needed the support. I'm a first-time foundation chair and like a third-year Rotarian. So yes, I could use that. Thank you.
Yes, job well done. So Don Fuller wants to know, have the project fairs restarted now that we're halted during the pandemic? Carolyn, do you have any updates on the project fair?
We don't know yet. I think it's going to be country by country in terms of, because of COVID-19 pandemic. So it's hard to say at this point. I don't think any of the countries we normally help can do it except virtually. This past January and February, the clubs in Central America and Colombia did all their presentations virtually. So it was thorough. It was very good. But nobody can travel there yet. And that's still the case. So I'm sorry. I think it's worth checking in, either calling someone in Rotary, or I'm happy to help, or look at the website of the State Department for what countries we can travel to, and see what the status is. I'm just kind of going month by month myself.
Well, I know that the Rotary Youth Exchange has been canceled for this year. So I would imagine at this point in time, we're still not allowed to travel for project fairs as well.
Yeah.
If we have current global grant projects going, we cannot travel until the Rotary International tells us we can travel. I was planning on taking a vocational training medical team back in for our second phase, and in 2022, and the foundation told me the other day, maybe not. You'll go when we tell you you can go. So we're just waiting. Frederick?
Yeah, I just gonna mention that I've got the link to the project fair from Medellin, Colombia,
Mhm.
for the, list of all the projects that were presented
Right.
and particulars about those projects. If anybody wants me to send them that link, I can do that. So
Yeah,
that's-
thank you, Frederick. I have it too, actually, from attending. So, yeah, and the districts that presented at these project fairs are still proceeding with their projects to the extent that they can get the technical help and funding. So that's really what is a go or no-go situation. Yeah.
So everyone, it is 11:08. We would be finished at 11:10. I want you to be able to get into your new next class. So if there aren't any more questions, shall we end, or Kathy?
Yeah, just one question. Do we have at the district level a list of clubs and contacts who are interested in doing something internationally, whether through a global grant or through a district grant? Because when we were putting together this project in Pátzcuaro, Mexico in the last few months, it would have been nice if I knew which clubs might have a little bit of extra money that they would like to join in to a partnership with something already being done, so very limited work on their part. Do we have a list of those people?
Kathy, I can address this. Unfortunately, I wish dearly there was such a list. There isn't. What there is, though, is a list of the clubs that have a international service chair and or committee, and the clubs that don't, which are the greater percentage, unfortunately, in our district. So if you like, contact me, or I can contact you, but I'm not quite sure how I find you. And I'd be happy to help you with that list, at least. I can tell you generally the clubs with the biggest international service projects tend to be Nevada City 49ers and I think 3 of the Reno clubs, Reno Central. I forget all the Reno clubs, but not Centennial. At any rate, they're the most active. You may find information from those members. And I'm happy to help you if you want to talk or.
Okay, and I put my email into the chat box.
Yeah, okay. And
Okay,
I'll put my
everyone.
phone number. Yeah.
It's 11:10 and we promised we would shut down on time. So it was nice seeing all of your faces this morning. Thank you for attending. Frederick, all the best to your travels. And Don, Mia, and Kathy, great job. And Bill, you're jumping in there, aren't you, bud? Okay, goodbye, everyone. Thank you,
Bye,
George.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, bye, and thanks for attending.